Mother Knows Death. Starring Nicole and Jemmy and Maria QK.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mother Knows Death. On today's episode, we have an update on a college cheerleader who killed her newborn infant. We're going to talk about a couple of horrific shootings that happened this weekend, including one at a Mormon church and the other at a boat bar. Then we'll discuss teenagers getting cosmetic surgery, a murderer who confessed to his crimes live in a TV interview, and how our brains are affected by seeing horrible content on social media all day. Then we'll finish up with your questions, all that and more on today's episode. Let's get started with Laken Snelling, the update with her.
Yeah, so updates with the Kentucky cheerleader who was arrested after her newborn was found dead in a trash bag in her bedroom closet. So when we first started covering this, I feel like our number one questions were like, what even happened? How did she hide this pregnancy? Who called the police? Because that wasn't clear. So now we're starting to get some more info on that. So the story that's coming out now is that she gave birth in the middle of the night, was awake for about 30 minutes after giving birth, and then she's claiming she passed out on top of the baby. And when she woke up, the baby was turning purple and blue. So then she swaddled him and laid next to him for a while to comfort herself. And then after that, she told her roommates that she had passed out because she hadn't eaten. She went to McDonald's and then she went to a health clinic. She never ended up going inside. But while she was gone, the roommates were suspicious because they heard all these noises in the middle of the night. And then that's when they found the baby.
Yeah, so I just saw a new picture that's floating around of her from July, which was like a month before when did this happen?
Late August.
Okay, so yeah, so it was like a month before this happened, right? And she looks pregnant to me. If I saw her and I didn't know her, I'd be like, oh, that girl's pregnant because the girl's wearing a t-shirt, but she just has a certain look that pregnant people get. And like, trust me, I know just that people in general gain weight in different ways and everything like that. So you can't just assume that someone's pregnant because sometimes people just gain weight in their belly, right? But the thing is, in this particular situation, is that these roommates have lived with her for some time and they know what her body used to look like and now what it looks like being whatever she was, 8 or 9 months pregnant, right? So even though Laken had never actually admitted to being pregnant, there's no way in the back of everyone's mind that knew her that people were like, what's going on here? Especially, it's not like it was the winter and she was wearing big hoodies and was able to hide it a little bit more. It's like the summer and she's wearing t-shirts and to anybody looking, they would notice. So her friends probably were all whispering behind her back, like, what's going on here? Why does she look like this? And so as soon as all this unusual stuff started happening, like them hearing weird noises at night, followed by her being like, oh, I just fainted, I have to go get treatment at the health center, I think that they were like, let's go creep in her room and see what's going on here.
Yeah, I said this at CrimeCon too when we originally covered the story, that I have the type of belly that if I'm bloated in a specific way, I could look 4 to 5 months pregnant, right? So I never want to ever criticize people the way they look. And there is a world in which she could have just, her roommates or her friends or her teammates might have just thought maybe she's gaining weight and maybe that's just the way it's sticking out. But you never want to be that person that's, we all know somebody or we've all done it where you ask somebody when they're due and they're not pregnant, right? And it's the worst thing ever and nobody should ever ask a pregnant person unless they're forthcoming about it themselves. But I do think it's one of those things where the pictures we've seen of her in the past, she's extremely thin. She's always wearing crop tops with her flat belly showing. So to me, if she's 8 or 9 months pregnant, it would be way more obvious than the normal person that might just have the same kind of stomach I do where I could look pregnant.
That's what I say.
Point.
Like I'm a person too that gains weight in my belly all the time. It's like between my butt to my belly button is like where I gain most of my weight, right? But I never, even when I have been at my very, very skinniest, I've never, ever had a flat belly, ever.
No, me neither.
I feel like it's like a certain body type, and she had a very athletic build prior to this. But regardless of that, like I just think that they all had in the back of their mind that something was up because
Yeah, but
it
if
just was.
somebody's not saying it out loud and being forthcoming about it, you can even call them out and say, "We think you're pregnant," but what if she's, in
Yeah, no, you
reply,
can't. You
is
can't, and
just like
it's
that's
like
made up?
you don't have to tell people. I mean, it's just whatever. But like in this particular situation, I just feel like the roommates, like imagine just being at college and living with your friends and experiencing this. Like one of the roommates found the dead baby in the bag.
Yeah, I mean, that's horrific in itself. And then they're saying a search of her phone revealed deleted pregnancy searches, labor photos, and evidence of a concealed pregnancy. So clearly, to investigators, it appears she was fully aware of what was going on.
So that's what I had questions about because the searches seemed like obviously if you're pregnant, even if you're pregnant and planning on having a pregnancy, people search a lot of different questions. That's like totally normal.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think the searches are abnormal. I think it's weird that they said that there were pictures of labor. Like, was she searching for pictures of people in labor or was she taking pictures of herself in labor?
I thought a couple weeks ago they had said there was pictures of her own labor on there, but I don't really understand what happened. I don't understand the psyche behind her at all in this situation. I mean, she could have totally given birth and given the shot. Like we always are talking about firehouses have that kind of like don't ask, don't tell or whatever program where
Well,
you could just
you know that in this story that there was one within 10 minutes of where she had this baby.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
So
that's something that came out maybe a week or two ago was that they're called like safe haven box. It's a box outside of a fire station that you could stick a newborn infant in and you won't get in any trouble. There's like no questions, don't ask, don't tell kind of like thing, which is really awesome because she could have just. But I don't think that many people know about that, and I'm telling you, like there's something that in her mind she wasn't really convinced that this was happening.
well, the way I see it, she's pleaded not guilty so far, so I don't think she thinks she did anything wrong. And I remember the autopsy was inconclusive how the baby died, so would they be able to go back and prove her theory or whatever she said,
Well,
that she passed out on the baby?
they said that the autopsy was inconclusive, but they also said that it's still pending, so that means that I don't know exactly what they're looking for that's this long. I mean, that's a month ago, right? But they're waiting for additional tests to confirm and probably investigation, but she literally said that the baby was alive and was making a whimpering noise. So she kind of is saying that the baby was alive. It wasn't a stillborn. Which,
Well, yeah.
and like, listen, like, they still really need to conclude that with the autopsy if possible, because that's a huge difference between how she's going to get in trouble for this. Because if she just had a stillborn and just concealed it, she's not going to get in any. I mean, she might get in trouble for concealing the death, but I don't even think that she would. Well, it's like a huge difference in charges besides murder,
That's what I'm talking about, though. Let's say she did give birth and she genuinely passed out on the baby and the baby died by accident. She still hid evidence and put the child in a trash bag. So, like, she still committed some form of a crime.
Yeah, and I mean, that could just even be if that really, I don't know. Like, come on. I just don't even buy it. But let's say in theory that happened, because I mean, anybody who's given birth, that that's a possibility and you have blood loss and things like that. But the fact that she passed out like that and just so happened to fall on top of the baby, it's just like, it's still going to be negligence for her not doing the right thing, right? Like,
well, exactly. So
there's just what's interesting too is that she was released on bond to her parents, and like, what do her parents think about this? She killed their grandchild.
Well, I'm sure they're not okay with it if they're good people, because nobody could understand being in this predicament. I mean, you're hiding a pregnancy in general. There's evidence we know that she was aware of it. Even if she was in denial, she still just did the wrong thing. Even if she didn't want the kid, there's a million things she could have done without the kid dying. Unless it was genuinely an accident.
Listen, like, you could say, if let's say, for example, that happened and she passed out. If she, like, woke up right away and called 911 and was freaking out, like, that would actually, like, you might believe that a little tiny bit. But the fact that she wrapped it up and put it in a trash bag, like, I'm sorry, but when you have a baby, the last thing that you want to think about is putting them in a trash bag, even if you know they're dead, or it's just completely disrespectful, and also, like, metaphoric of putting your child in a trash bag.
Listen,
And
I
then
know.
but then after that, she went to McDonald's and she told her friends that she fainted. Like, she didn't say anything about it. So to me, it's like, if it was an accident, like, it's just bullshit. I mean, of course she's going to deny it because she's in a shit ton of trouble right now.
Well, even if it was an accident, she's not going to be forthcoming with this personality that she just killed a child.
I know, exactly. So it's just like, whatever.
Okay, over the
It
weekend
says, wait, so is that, real quick, is that that's going to go to court and stuff? Like, that's something we're going to be able to keep an eye on and watch?
Yeah, they're saying there's enough evidence to present it to a grand jury.
Okay, I mean, that'll be really interesting to watch. I'm curious how that's going to go down. So we'll keep you guys up to date on that.
I mean, I would say she's pleaded not guilty right now, but at this point, which I could be wrong because feel like I was so wrong about the Idaho case. I feel like there's so much evidence that it's not going to be good for her, so she should take a deal.
Yeah.
But I would be interested to see this pan out at trial.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, over the weekend in Michigan, a man drove his truck into an LDS church before getting out, shooting at hundreds of congregants, and setting the building on fire.
Yeah, man, this has been, like, just a rough couple of weeks for sure with certain news stories. And now, I guess this guy was in his 40s and he just didn't like Mormon people. There's lots of documentation of him, I guess, now when they're interviewing different people, saying that it seems like he was in a relationship with someone that was Mormon maybe over 10 years ago and just kind of has this built up resentment towards it for whatever reason. And just even recently, there was this person that was running as a politician that had a conversation with him, and he was making a lot of comments that he didn't believe in the religion and that he thought that they weren't Christian, and actually said the words, he thought that they were antichrist, which also, as soon as this person that was running politician saw him said that, saw that the person that carried this out said that, he knew right away that it was that guy because it was just such specific rhetoric, right?
Yeah, I do think it's interesting. I mean, they have a very controversial background of how that religion started and everything, but you could argue that every single religion does. But it is disturbing to think that somebody would target a group like this. I mean, I know I went on a rant last week how I was like really pissed at the Catholic Church for banning that surrogate teacher, right? But I think, when you go to a place, if people find peace within a church and they're there doing worship and just trying to be themselves and partake in their faith, and then this person just comes in and attacks you when you're just innocently trying to be at church, that's horrific.
Yeah, and it just, the whole thing went down so crazy, and it just so happens that there were a lot of resident physicians that were just at church, so happened to be there. So not only were they victims, but they were also acting as first responders in the case. I mean, that's a lot of people to get shot, and time is of the essence in that situation. But then on top of that, he set the building on fire too. So people not only died of gunshot wounds, but also died in the fire. I don't know if it was they were shot and they were not able to get out of the building in time, or if they just got caught in the flames and weren't able to exit the building. But
yeah, because
it's
they
just
said
really terrible.
They said one victim died at the scene, another died at the hospital, and 2 more were found at the scene due to the fire. So, as of when we're recording, 4 people are dead, 8 are injured. The 8 people that are injured range in age from 6 to 76 years old. 2 of them are in critical condition. It's horrible to see. I mean, this guy, it's like already traumatic. You have a car drive through a building. Then he gets out. Then he starts shooting. Then he sets the building on fire. Where is this going to end? These people must have been terrified.
So this guy is a former Marine, and there actually might be a connection with the next case that we're going to talk about too. But right before a couple days before he died, his mom had put this cryptic post up on Facebook, which they don't know who exactly she was talking about, but saying something that someone in her life was refusing to take accountability and always twist everything, um, which is interesting if that was geared towards him or not. We don't really know any details, but getting back to his service, he's a 40-year-old guy that served and went away to Iraq, right? And the interesting thing is that this other guy in this next story that we're going to talk about also served. They both served at Camp Lejeune. They were both deployed at some point, and there was like an overlap in their time at Camp Lejeune, and they're both around the same age. Like, what could there be a connection? I don't think that they've found one. It's just really kind of interesting, right?
Wasn't there all that controversy with all those? There's all those commercials about that camp, right?
Yeah, but that was something about one of our friends actually was involved with that because he got some kind of tumor. I think it was because of the contaminated water or something there.
Well,
But like a long time, like a while ago.
Well, I think it was back because I feel like it was back around. How old is that guy that you know? Because I feel like Ricky was.
He's like 60.
Okay, I feel like Ricky was saying he was wondering if his dad was involved because his dad had gone there when he went to Vietnam, but maybe that was too far back. So, yeah, this next incident was just 12 hours before in North Carolina. This is insane. So, this guy, who's also a 40-year-old ex-Marine, he pulls up on a boat to a boat bar and just opens fire on people eating on the deck.
Yeah, and like, what was that one about? I actually think that I went to this place.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because Gabe and I went to this Oak Island for our anniversary one year. Remember, we stayed at like that beach house. We drove down there for a couple days.
Oh, yeah.
And we went to a bar that was there on Cape Fear on the water that was right around that area. So it just looks kind of familiar to me. It's just, you go to those places all the time when you're on vacations like that. And what was the reason? Did you, because I couldn't really find anything. Like, did he go there for someone specific, or was it just completely random? Like, what was...
The way I see it now is it was completely random and they're looking for a motive. But unlike the last case, in the last case, I don't think we mentioned that the attacker ended up getting killed in a police shootout. So they need to search a little harder for motive, whereas they have this guy.
Yeah, and I mean, that's good sometimes because I guess trying to get to the bottom of why these things happen, the best thing is to be able to talk to these people and see. Now this guy had a little bit of a different history because his wife was interviewed that they had been divorced already for 10 years, and she was like, he was like always crying for help and having serious mental health issues and apparently wasn't getting treated properly.
Well, with this case, I just think the details between the two cases, especially them only being 12 hours apart, are so eerie. Both of them being 40-year-old Marine vets, both cases. So in this case, 3 people were killed, 8 people were injured. That's almost identical to the last case where 4 people were killed, 8 people were injured. And, you just see this history of the potential PTSD from serving in the military, or not military, but the Marines, so...
Yeah, I mean, and that's something that I wanted to bring up too, is that's especially for people that get deployed to war and everything, that PTSD is a huge known thing, and it could just cause people to have disturbing memories, thoughts, images of stressful experiences that they had, bad dreams, just flashbacks, they'll say. And this has been known to cause extreme agitation in people. They could have delusions and just like, I mean, that could be, and I'm not even, because really at autopsy, that's not something, especially the one that got killed in Minnesota, because they'll do an autopsy on that guy too. If for whatever reason at war he had some kind of a traumatic brain injury, which is completely possible, then you would see, you could see signs of that at autopsy. Also, if he had a history of it, he could have like CTE or something like that. That would explain maybe why he decided or was increasingly having just these delusions and thoughts like this. And the other guy who's still alive, I guess they could do more psychological testing to see if he does indeed have PTSD and was being treated properly or what caused it. But it's just scary to, I mean, we talk about this all the time. We actually didn't even bring that up in this episode today, but there was an update with that shooting at the NFL building in Manhattan a couple of months ago, that guy did indeed have early signs of CTE in his brain. I think he wrote that in his letter, though, right? When
No, he
we
definitely
already talked
suspected
about
it,
that. But like, it's just scary to think about people that are walking around that are having this condition in their brain that's really not of their own doing, and then it taking over and then doing something terrible like this.
Well, I think in this case, too, it's similar to the last guy where he clearly, based on what the wife said, had a history of issues going on. And the police were also very aware of him because they said that this guy had filed several lawsuits against the town and the police department in the past couple years with all these conspiracy theories that were never proven.
The lawsuits actually sound so crazy that I can't even believe a lawyer would try to bring them forth.
Please, there are types
But
of
they,
lawyers
it
that-
doesn't, it literally sounds like a person that's out of their mind talking about people that they're trying to sue somebody for something that is an untrue story. Like, it's just crazy.
Yeah, but it happens all the time. But to think that you're just on vacation hanging out at a bar on a Saturday night and this happens is horrific. And I definitely don't think anybody suspected somebody was going to pull up on a boat and execute something like this.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a lot of the times when things like this happen. You always talk about like soft targets. That's exactly right what you said. They want to get people when they would least expect it. Because I don't know about you, but every single time we go in a restaurant now, it's like Gabe wants to sit in a certain seat so he could see the front door, and like, this is where we're going to leave if there's a problem. Like, it's so sad that you have to think that way, but that's the way it is now. Same at the stadiums and things like that. And then it's like, you're expecting this to happen. Like, if you said to someone, is a shooter going to come in the restaurant, you would expect them to come in the front door. You wouldn't expect them to be coming from behind the kitchen. Like, it's just, and it throws people off, and that's how they get more bodies.
No, totally.
And it's a shame too at church. Like, we've had at least 2 church shootings this year, if not more. I mean, we had 2 major ones at least within the past couple of months. I think that all churches need to be like having some kind of a plan of action but every single time we see one of these things happen, it's like something new gets introduced that us regular people are like, I never thought that would happen. Like, okay, the guy comes in and shoots up a church. Okay, that's happened. But, oh, now he sets it on fire. So when there's all the chaos is happening, now you have to deal with escaping a burning building, which churches are infamously like the worst buildings to burn down because they have so much room in the roof, in a pitched roof like that. They're like the worst fires. Gabe always says that. So, there's always like another thing thrown into the mix. This is now, oh, there's a shooting at a restaurant. Oh, well, this time the guy's coming up on a boat. Like, right? It's just.
Well, how would you even prevent that? You know,
That's what I'm saying.
Can't prevent
like,
most of these,
but it's just like like these people that want to that are intent on hurting people just try to throw other things in the mix to throw people off because regular people just don't think that way.
This episode is brought to you by The Gross Room.
Guys, we did our high-profile death dissection this week on the DC sniper shooting, and it's really good. You guys should read it. Of course, I was in my early 20s when that happened, and I remember living through it and thinking how scary it was, but just kind of revisiting it and reading all about it and the investigation and how, like, obvious it was that there were, well, you could get into it in the article. It's just really crazy, like, how it all went down and what people were going through. And especially for those of you that are a little bit younger and unfamiliar with what happened, it's really interesting. We also have a really interesting case of a guy who killed a sex worker, which is like, whatever, that happens all the time. But this guy did some crazy shit afterwards. And so you definitely should check that post out too for $5.99 a month for the gross room.
Head over to thegrossroom.com now to sign up.
All right, this story pissed me off. uh, Cosmetic surgery in teenagers.
Well, I guess I'll start from the beginning just so everybody could really understand. I mean, the story in general is really messed up, but when you learn about what happened from start to finish, it's completely unforgivable. This happened in Mexico, so this dad gets a call from his 14-year-old daughter's mother saying they tested positive for COVID and were going to quarantine in a cabin with no cell service, so he was worried, but he didn't think too much of it. A week later, the 14-year-old ends up dying, and the dad doesn't find out until her funeral that she didn't die from COVID, but died from a botched cosmetic surgery where she got a breast augmentation from the mother's new boyfriend.
This is the thing, because plastic surgeons don't always have set rules for, okay, you're this age and you can't get this, because a lot of times there's a crossover with plastic surgery that it's sometimes like let's say for example if a child has to get part of their ear cut off for cancer or something like that, or just like a reconstructive surgery would be considered a plastic surgery, and they do that sometimes for children. And just other things, like let's say a girl goes through puberty early and gets really big breasts and wants to get a breast reduction. Like oftentimes they'll do that way before 18 years old just because it's physically causing problems to her skeleton, right? The excess weight of the breast tissue. So there's not like a hardcore line of like, we don't do these surgeries under this age or whatever. But typically when they do a plastic surgery on a child, you have to have the consent from both of the parents. And I guess in this case, they only got the consent from the mother, but I'm sure there was a lot of things skipped because it was her boyfriend.
Well, you know what, too, is the most messed up part of this is at her funeral, a couple people had made comments to the dad that her boobs look so much larger. And he asked the mom, and she totally blew him off and denied it. So then he was able to convince the mother to leave the room so he could grieve in private with his other family members. And when they got the mother out of the room, his mother, sister, and sister-in-law looked under her shirt and saw the scars.
They took pictures of the scars and the breast implants. And she's 14 years old, which is just so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous that a mom... This is another thing, too, and I read on other articles that she was also having a butt lift. Okay?
Why?
So which would be like... I would assume would be like a BBL procedure, right? Which is known to be the most deadly cosmetic surgery procedure. It's when you think about people dying during plastic surgery, it's because of BBLs, right? So, which is likely, because I actually thought that it was unusual that she died having her boobs done, because breast surgery is done so frequently, and it's not that it can't happen. It would most likely be because of an anesthesia issue, but just like it's just highly unlikely for a person to die during a breast implant surgery because it's very superficial. Like it's not invasive. You're on top of the chest cavity, whereas like a BBL is using a liposuction tool in very dangerous areas, which could cause a fat embolism or pulmonary embolism in somebody. It's just such a riskier procedure.
But if it was being done illegally, did they have all the safety in place?
Well, I mean, that's completely also a possibility, but the guy was a doctor, so but who knows?
Yeah, but
like,
was he doing it under the radar because they didn't have the proper consent is what I'm asking.
Who knows what was happening there? Like,
so it says she went into cardiorespiratory arrest and had severe brain swelling that led doctors to induce a coma and put her on a ventilator. And then after she was on the ventilator, that is when the mom alerted the dad that she was about to die. And then I was
like, oh, she's having bad COVID.
I was interested in this too because the death certificate indicated that her cause of death was cerebral edema resulting from a respiratory illness. So was that just negligence on behalf of the hospital or what? Because she didn't end up getting an autopsy.
Well, she was alive for 7 days before she died. So I don't know exactly what happened, like what the event was that put her in the hospital on a ventilator. She probably had a pulmonary, like I said, she could have had a fat embolism or a pulmonary embolism. And then she was on the machine. So she could have gotten a respiratory infection due to being on the ventilator, but it's more than likely just damage that was done from the initial surgery that, she was having complications from that damaged her lungs. And she didn't have an autopsy, but the father wants her to have an autopsy.
Well, now after he knows that she had the breast implants.
So, I mean, at this point, they can do an autopsy, but now she's embalmed, so there's likely going to be some artifact because of that. But really, at this point, I don't really know if it's necessary because, like, she died as a result of having complications from the plastic surgery. So if they're not really going to be able to figure out exactly maybe the pivotal thing that happened because they have so much documentation from the hospital over the past 7 days. But if he's planning on, I guess, bringing charges and having the mother get in trouble, because the mother should get in trouble technically, but I don't know if the mom would actually get in trouble. Or, I mean, the doctor would definitely get in trouble because they are supposed to have signed consent from both parents, apparently, in this case. So, her doing it is like one thing, but like there's supposed to be a person that stops that from happening that didn't.
But I guess what I'm just not understanding is, like, I understand they're saying she died from the respiratory illness, right? But like when she got to that point, they weren't like, how did she get here? The mother just said, oh, she had COVID and she's not breathing, and they just accepted that.
Who? The hospital?
Yeah.
No, the hospital would have known.
Yeah, but they're saying on the death certificate they filed, it had nothing mentioning.
Well,
the plastic surgery.
The death certificate isn't filled out properly. It could say that because that's actually her cause of death, but then it could say as a result of complications due to cosmetic surgery, which is the autopsy would be. Listen, this is all in Mexico, so I don't know how they do shit there anyway, right? Like this, I'm talking like if this was done in America, and I don't know. This is something that, if this was in a U.S. hospital and this happened, that would be documented as part of her treatment, and it should be on the death certificate, but we talk about all the time that death certificates are never filled out properly. So, and that technically, like in America, if that happened, that would be considered an accidental death, and that's a reportable death, and that would be a medical examiner's case. Now, the hospital might let or the medical examiner might let the hospital do the autopsy, but the medical examiner is going to have involvement because it would be considered an accidental death. I don't know how they do things in Mexico, but
okay.
So, which is part of the problem, because right then and there, like that wouldn't even have went down like that here, kind of,
Yeah. All right, this man went on the news for a sit-down interview and admitted on TV to killing his parents and burying them in the backyard.
Yeah, I guess the people were on to him at first that he was doing something because apparently the parents have been dead for a while and he was collecting their benefits.
Well, it first started last Wednesday as an investigation because the police or investigators became aware that these Social Security checks were getting cashed, but the parents hadn't been seen in a very long time. And according to neighbors, they thought they had moved to Germany or something totally random. So they go to the house and they end up finding their bodies in the backyard. And then the very next day, their son calls CBS, like the local Albany CBS, and with this statement, and they convince him to come in for this interview. And while
he goes in like within an hour, and nobody was prepared to like.
Nobody was prepared. Did you watch the interview?
I didn't even watch it because I was just trying to read it. I wanted to read the whole article just to hear the backstory, because I was thinking like this guy kind of got like the interview of a lifetime. I mean, like, how often do people really admit certain huge things like that on air like that?
Well, yeah. So I guess over the phone, they asked if he had involvement in the death, and he said, I plead the fifth, and that's when they were able to convince him to come in within an hour. So, yeah, like you're saying, they were absolutely not prepared for what was about to happen. So, this journalist sits down with him and is asking him questions, and he's just saying, well, I sent you a statement. And he's saying, well, you basically said it in the statement, so just say it now. And after 8 minutes, the journalist is finally just like, how'd you do it? Did you do so and so? Did you suffocate? And when he said, did you suffocate them? He shook his head and was just like, yeah.
Oh my God.
It was nuts. So this reminded me of when Laura Ingle was on and she was saying she interviewed that killer.
Oh,
and
yeah.
how terrifying it was. You must be sitting in your seat as a journalist like, holy shit, this person is,
But like, what's going on in the background? Are people like, yeah, I guess we should probably call the police right now, and because he got arrested right after the interview, so that's what they did.
Yeah, I'm assuming somebody well, I think they said that when he got there, they had an undercover cop in regular clothes in the lobby, but they were fully prepared for what happened, and when he was leaving the studio, he ended up getting arrested in the CBS parking lot.
Amazing.
But it's kind of unbelievable, but he was saying that it was a mercy killing because they were getting old and frail. I don't think that was the case at all.
Listen, like, there's a part of me that understands that to a certain extent, because sometimes when you see old people that have like Alzheimer's and they're completely out of their mind and they're just like doing these awful things to themselves and they seem like they're really suffering, but especially with Alzheimer's, like sometimes their bodies are completely intact, right? And they're going to live a long time, but their brain is, I always tell Gabe, like, yo, if I ever get like that, like, please take me out. Like, I just don't. And he's like, yeah, Nicole, I'm just going to shoot you, whatever. Like, but seriously, like, I don't want to live like that, right? But the thing is, with this particular case, his parents didn't seem like they had any kind of a terminal thing, like, whatsoever. They weren't suffering with like cancer, or it was like the mom fell
and broke her hip,
and the dad had to have surgery for cataracts and wasn't able to drive anymore. Like, they seemed like they were perfectly healthy people. Like, yeah, they were going a little downhill and everything, but like, I don't know. If they went to do like a physician assisted suicide, they probably would have been like, you don't really qualify for like a terminal illness because you can't drive anymore.
So my question is that this happened 8 years ago when he killed them. So does Social Security not have any responsibility to make sure that the people come in?
This happens all the time. It really does.
I just think that's so ridiculous when it's either like you need to require an in-person visit after, like, not every year, but like every 2-3 years, something. More than 8 years. I don't know. We talk about these cases all the time. I just feel like this for a really long time.
I feel like they're, and like, I'm not 100% sure about this, so I don't want to speak of this because I don't work at a funeral home, but since all deaths go through a funeral home, whether it's cremation or burial, for the most part, mostly all of them do, with the exception of like getting donated to science or whatever. At some point, all these people get a death certificate at least, right? There should be a way that the death certificate like automatically goes to the state and tells them that that person's dead. Well, because I feel like that would just stop a lot of this.
But I think a lot of these cases that people aren't going through funeral homes.
Yeah, and I understand because in theory the funeral home doesn't know that they died. So
even think about it, like when we were getting those stimulus checks a couple years ago, Ricky's stepmom's mother died in, I think, 2018, and she got a stimulus check for her and sent it back and was like, my mom died years ago. Why am I getting this for her?
Yeah, and you hear that too, that you hear like people are getting ballots and stuff for people who have died. It's just, there has to be a way. I don't really know how they would do that. And God, there's probably so much fraud that they don't even ever catch, because if there's no way to tell that someone died, how, if you're not burying them or doing a traditional thing, like how would anybody ever really know?
Well, remember a couple weeks ago I told you my mailman knocked on the door and said, I have this certified, it looked like a check for the woman that used to live at my house, but she died I believe 10 years ago, and I was like, she's dead. I don't, and I've
Well,
lived
I
here
wouldn't
for.
put that back past the people that lived in your house previously.
Well, that's what I
They're
told.
probably like going to your house when you're not home and picking up mail and stuff.
Well, I told him, I'm like, because he was like, do you think it's just something for the kids? And I said, I don't know, because I've lived here for almost 5 years and I've never gotten anything like this for her. And I
Yeah.
believe she died 5 years before we moved in the house. So I don't know what that was about, but I do think a lot of people are doing it.
Yeah, I just wouldn't. I mean, I feel like eventually you get caught, and it's just like, why would you even want to risk having to pay back money like that?
It's so stupid. You're going to get caught.
I always think that way too when people do tax fraud and stuff, because you can get not caught doing things or whatever, but when you're talking about the government getting money or giving money to someone, it's like they have the biggest things invested in making sure that that does not happen.
Oh, for sure.
And they will use all of their resources and figure it out, even if it's in 10 years from now. And why would you ever want to have to owe back money like that? Because especially like this guy, I mean, this guy's got bigger problems, I guess, because he actually killed them. But just doing the Social Security fraud in general is just, I just don't understand it.
And then you go on television and admit it.
Yeah, well, clearly the guy's off. Okay.
Do you think he looked a little bit like Ben Franklin? Because I don't know why. Something in his face, he looked
Maybe it is
historical. I don't know.
There's way more to this story than just this. He's
All right.
really a ghost, actually.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. All right, let's talk about this new evidence showing the dangers of doom scrolling.
All right, so this is a super interesting article that really goes through a person that was teaching psychology in a university, and just how she started noticing that this was becoming a thing. I guess she said that it would start with Columbine and just people's exposure to these really horrible things that are happening. And of course, Columbine was pre-internet, or right when
Well,
did that?
internet
I feel
existed, but it was pre-social media.
Yeah, but it was pre-Google. I
Google
feel like
was around.
Yeah, but what year was it? I'm just trying to put myself.
99.
1999. So I don't know that I even had used Google yet by that time. I was in college and things like that. But I mean, at that time, like, I was still having to go to college and sign up on a piece of paper. I mean, it was new. The internet was not what it is today. No apps on smartphones and anything like that. But they said that really started it. And then, of course, the September 11th attacks. Again, there wasn't a ton of internet, at least what we know of it today. But that's when the whole 24-hour news cycle started, and just repeatedly seeing these things. And then she goes on to say that one of the biggest changing things, which I never really thought about before, was the Boston Marathon bombings, and then how you were actually seeing like blown off body parts and stuff. Just really gruesome things that we don't really ever had not seen like that in mass like that, right? I mean, people obviously in Barbara Butcher's profession or my profession see stuff like that, but that's not just common for regular everyday people to see. So in this article, she's saying that you get into these cycles of this body stress response, which when you see it in real life, or if you see it on the screen, you get this fight or flight response that releases cortisol and adrenaline. And then when these threats go away, your body returns to the baseline. But she's saying that the repeated exposure can start disrupting not only your response to stress, but also your reward system. And it could cause you to be hopeless, anxious. And some of the studies that they've done now on this are really, really crazy, that show that people who watch news cycles for 6 hours a day with this just repeated trauma of listen, like, it's happened so much in the past couple of weeks between seeing the Charlie Kirk shooting on going around social media, and the woman who was stabbed on the train, just in that week alone. if you're watching the news like that for multiple hours a day, they actually think that you have more PTSD probability than a person that was actually at the event, which is crazy because they said that happened with the Boston Marathon bombing, that people that were really emotionally invested in it and looking it up every day and seeing all these videos have more trauma than people that actually were there and experienced it.
Well, think about if you were there, for example, and you saw some stuff, you're seeing it in person, so you're most likely not going to go back and revisit the footage, right?
Yeah, it's
But
like a
if you're
one and done.
Yeah, but if you're removed from it and then you just keep looking at it over and over and over again, I totally can see this happening. I even notice on days when I'm just scrolling on TikTok or Instagram all night how miserable I am the next day and how it affects my mood and stuff, because it's not even just the news. You're seeing people live in nicer houses than you. You're seeing people who you think are prettier than you. It's everything. It just puts you in a terrible mindset. I think everybody needs to watch that Mountainhead movie on HBO. It really gives you a good fictional glimpse into how dangerous seeing things like this are.
So they call this doomsday scrolling. Like, I'm reading this article and I'm like, this is ruining my life because I feel like I do it. I'm 100%
You definitely
guilty.
do it.
I do because I'm in a weird situation because my job is I write and educate about these things. So, but like the Charlie Kirk video, for example, I've watched it hundreds of times, frame by frame, like because I'm
Well,
trying to figure out and talk about what happened and everything. But I could see, and not only that, just like all of my past work experience of seeing stuff, like I could see that it definitely takes an effect on people. And then the article saying like you start living your life being scared that stuff's going to happen. So obviously, like, don't you feel like a lot of people do that though, just hearing all these news stories all the time?
well, yeah, and I mean, I guess the obvious advice they're giving in this article is not to be on your phone all day and to give your brain a break, but it's just not the way we live anymore.
Yeah, and I think for most people though that they don't sit on it as much. I mean, do regular people that aren't in this kind of a field that we're in right now look at these stories for this many hours a day?
Yes, I mean,
Because
think
that's like real. That's really sad actually to think about that, because I feel like sometimes part of the job that I don't like is that I just feel as if I can't really turn it off because I'm trying to constantly like learn about all of the stuff that's going on all the time.
I would argue that boomers are the worst generation with this because they have phones and they're used to watching the news, so they have both going at the same time. Because
Yeah.
I can name 10 people off the top of my head in this age bracket that are just constantly living in a state of fear. Did you see this on the news? Did you see this on the news? And it's like you can't just watch the news all the time. You have to watch
Yeah.
something else. Everybody makes fun of me for reading my shitty romance books and watching Real Housewives, but I read horrible things all day to provide entertainment to you people. So I need a break at the end of the day.
Those books are really bad.
They're Hallmark movies.
Tentacle Love. No,
I
that's
don't-
that
I
is not a
don't read-
Hallmark movie. That's like some kind of weird.
First of all, I don't read romantasy, so relax. I read like dumb other contemporary
that was
books.
not the impression I got when I went to that bookstore.
Did you see me shopping on that side of the store? I don't think so. All right, let's move on to questions of the week. Every Friday at the Mother Knows Death Instagram account or on the YouTube channel, you guys can ask us whatever questions you want. 1. Why does it hurt to break a bone? I thought they didn't have nerves.
Bones have nerves. They're just on the outside of the bone. So there's a thin membrane on the outside of the bones called the periosteum, which has a ton of nerves. So when the bone breaks, that causes pain. And then you also have, if you have a compound fracture, for example, where the bone breaks in pieces and it could stab into your muscles and your tendons, you could also get pain from that. And then you get swelling and inflammation, and that can compress nerves, which also causes pain. So yeah, they have nerves.
All right, 2. Have you seen any extra weird ectopic pregnancies? This person saying they just had a patient with one in each fallopian tube.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I've seen a lot just in surgical pathology. I mean, I haven't seen any real interesting ones in real life in surgical pathology, just the old bread and butter one in a fallopian tube, but we do have some really awesome cases in the gross room. We have one called You Can't Judge a Book by Its Cover, and that's a woman that had an abdominal pregnancy, which is super, super rare. And then we have another one called 2 for 1 that there is actually a twin pregnancy inside of a fallopian tube. And it's really cool to look at, so check those out.
I think question was submitted by one of our YouTube live regulars, and I don't want to say her name on here just in case she could get in trouble with her work for exposing that information. But we could ask her probably some
I'm
more
sure
about
it's
that.
fine because, like, that would not fall under a HIPAA violation by any means.
I don't know how rules work with doctors' offices, so. All right, 3. How long did it take for you to perfect your bun?
Oh, I don't really know. I was thinking about that when I saw this question. I don't know. I don't even really know when I started. I guess I started wearing it when the kids were little, right? Or maybe when I was pregnant or something with them. But
when you were having Luber, you got the most outrageous haircut ever.
Well, that was not my that was not my
crazy.
fault.
That was crazy.
That was not my fault because I used to shave the side of my hair, and then some person like botched my hair so bad and cut it like all the way back across. You don't remember that?
I just remember coming in the house one day and was like, I don't know if it's pregnancy hormones, but I don't know what she's thinking.
No, I had
haircut.
to cut. I had to cut off all my hair. It was terrible. I had the little corner above my ear shaved. That was it. And this lady decided to put all these crazy layers like behind it, like halfway to my hair. So my hair literally looked like it was long on one side and the other side looked like an 80s layered haircut. It was the weirdest thing ever. There was nothing I could do to fix it. So then I was just like, I have to cut all my hair off. That was the only thing that I could do to fix it. But then I cut all my hair off like right before I had Luber, and then I really haven't cut it much since.
I feel like your bun, I'm trying to just think, because you had the shaved side part for a while after, because Lillian basically had the same haircut as you for a while. That's also your MO given your kid. Me and her had the same haircuts, like, that was little for years. I feel like the bun started coming up around, 2018, 2019?
No. I have a picture wearing the bun with Lillian when she's 1 year old.
Are you sure?
Yes, you took the picture. We were at some pumpkin farm or something.
Oh, you're right. Okay, so you had it before, and then you got the botched haircut, and then you went back to it when your hair grew back. Okay, yeah, you're right. Oh, yeah, I remember that photo shoot, because remember they wanted me to pay, like, $150 because I had my regular camera, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, that was
We just
dumb.
did it really fast. Yeah, that was dumb. Okay, guys, on Friday, we are going to be at the Wildlife CSI at Lake Tobias Wildlife Park. And then the following weekend, we are going to be sponsoring the golf carts at the Keeping Hope Alive Golf Classic. And the weekend after that, we will be at Darkside, New Jersey in Edison.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to go shopping for my house.
We should have the schedule for that coming out, hopefully, in the next week or two, too.
Awesome.
So we could give some more instructions. But I think if you buy the ticket early, you get some money off. So look into that because it's pretty affordable to go to in general, but I think you get an extra $5 off if you get in.
Yeah, and then you could get
early too.
My book too, and I'll sign your book if you get one. So
yeah. All right, guys. Well, head over to Apple or Spotify, leave us a review, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and if you have stories for us, please submit them to stories@motherknowsdeath.com.
See ya. Thank you for listening to Mother Knows Death. As a reminder, my training is as a pathologist assistant. I have a master's level education and specialize in anatomy and pathology education. I am not a doctor and I have not diagnosed or treated anyone, dead or alive, without the assistance of a licensed medical doctor. This show, my website, and social media accounts are designed to educate and inform people based on my experience working in pathology so they can make healthier decisions regarding their life and well-being. Always remember that science is changing every day and the opinions expressed in this episode are based on my knowledge of those subjects at the time of publication. If you are having a medical problem, have a medical question, or are having a medical emergency, please contact your physician or visit an urgent care center, emergency room, or hospital. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Mother Knows Death on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks.